Signifying who we are in line screen, the direct signal case through a system through a modify as an adaptation. Process calculation lines of bandwidth over screen or location setting position levels initiate run. What does that mean in line communication setting? What does this have to do with me? How does this anything information is calculated, modified to its setting? It's all about understanding how to use it in line so location you're inside position. Understanding you is to understand everything around you, is to understand everything inside of you. Everything is an inside position, never an outside. It's always lines of in and out. Now you can change the out to in and out, but you have to understand the both, which is the polarities of the male and the female male, which is all lines that communicates how to use the paradoxical system or anything the paradigm of polar shift or anything compulsory. You have to understand the convulsions. Getting in that communication setting puts all calc and modified. Getting that lines of communications, understanding how you come into your settings and inline communications through your clockings. Directing signals gets you in the lines of all communicate to its settings. Okay. Also, inline communication settings through the inner child that you process your system location doesn't have a routine of everything that it does. It stays in its imagination. It always has. It's never left its imagination. It always been its imagination, which is its phenomenon. The inner child itself, okay, is the operation of nothing that processes everything. It has imagination, right? You have imagination. You never forgot your imaginations. You just want to believe it's not real. You don't want to believe who you are. You don't want to understand the trusting system of who you are. You don't understand the adaptations of what you can do of who you are. You don't understand the process of communication of the phenomenon that you have inside you. How you use it in all levels of operation. Okay? Because it's just a projector of a projection. Nothing else in the simulation you're in. How to use it through the simulators. Okay? Especially when you come into money. You know, we just finished doing a live line screen. Somebody in line rotation says, how do I find $30? Well, it's not about finding $30. The $30 is already there in chronological order, but you don't know when and how you're going to get it in that position as it's in order. It's because it's already set in the alteration, right? Getting the communication is quiet in the mind, calm the soul. We already know that through attractions, right? Because that's all our vessels are, is an attraction. We don't chase anything. Everything comes to us, which is already an alteration of order. Let me say that again, chronological order. Everything comes into position location. That's why you have consciously awareness of everything around you. This watch knows how many times it needs to be worn. That's chronological order. My glasses in set position is in chronological order. They'll say, no, you don't wear this today, you wear it tomorrow. Okay? It knows exactly when and where you're going to be sitting in your seat. It knows exactly when and where you're going to be eating and drinking and any information. It knows exactly and when and where in all lines of communications where you're going to be through instructions. Everything is given to you instructions. It's all lines of identification, right? So the most powerful thing that you come into position of is focus on nothing. Shows you everything, massive everything, because you're not focusing on anything else. You're just focusing on yourself. The formations, the operations, the communications, the unification system to your setting. Focus. Okay? Now, there's all lines of communication setting. The most powerful thing is to recognize that. And the only way to recognize that is to have fun. Not just understand the inner child. You are the inner child. You're not coming into the inner child. You're not processing the inner child. You already are the inner child of you. You kind of come into acceptance of who you are and who you aren't. Because if you don't formulate and simulate in that position location, your body is going to be all levels of reaction and not respond. Okay, there's two factors, lines of communication, two lives. The second one is reminding you only have one. One is massive nothing, which is massive everything. Okay. I like the objective and line screen adaptations, and when it comes into all levels of there's no spoon. There never was a spoon. So the actual spoon is you. But that is not even you because you don't exist, but it's how you want to exist. See? See how I change the binary every single time it's set position of its setting? When I say you have to get out of all programming, I mean all programming. that's embedded inside of you. And sometimes it's going to resurface, even in position when you get activated through online cycles. That's going to be a continuing, a force continuum of adjusting your system. How you see and how you perceive others through perception, because that is not them. No intelligence will show its true self until you identify you. Okay? Through space modulations or anything identifications. And it's all done from coding and set calculations. To understand how to get money is to understand how to use the mind of conception. See, basic understanding is that money comes in all ways and forms through pi, but it's how to achieve it, which you already have. So in that position, everything I'm saying has already been understood through the avatar and the oversoul sequence. Okay? Nothing is out of order. Nothing's out of order. Everything's in order. Everything's in prime circuit. Everything is in its own primate. The one thing that you can't identify, everything around you is consciously aware of you. It's already been through its alignment. It's already been through its operation. It's already been through its history, ancestry, and celestial. My phone has already been through its operation. You have to identify it now in chronological order. When to actually pick it up and how many times you pick it up, because it keeps tracking line set locations and notifications setting through its coordinate system of its own device. Getting lines of consciousness, guys, you have to get into that position location system, because that's what's been helping you along the way when you put yourself in your own transdimensional space. Who do you think's been helping you out? You're not walking on the grounds. The ground is showing you how to walk. You're not talking. The air is showing you how to talk. You're not communicating. Your chakras are showing you how to communicate. You are not doing anything until you understand the sum of all that is. It's you that's off position. All you're doing is adjusting your minds, your position, your locations, your settings of nothing, which is the center of everything. Okay? So you're going to constantly get in conflict with yourself and with each other until you start identifying yourself of nothing. Nothing, nothing, nothing. Not compliance of this, not compliance of that, not compliance of who or anybody in position. Because I'm telling you right now, in that communications matrix is going to watch everybody in all lines of communications, keeping track of everybody through the avatars and the oversoul sequence. Okay? So it's very important that you understand how to identify yourself of the nothing, which shows you everything. Okay? Stop getting in conflicts with each other and start formulating, simulating, finding your way to get in that formations of unconditional love with yourself and each other. Okay? Building a rapport with yourself first. Finding a way to get in position of you first, not each other. You're here to identify you. Okay? In set position. Okay? Because I'm telling you right now, that causes lines of confliction with anything in set position, lines of high position location in the system, all through identification. Okay? Focus on yourselves. All right. Directing lines of communication lines. We got in track calculation lines on the hardware screen. Directing modification and verification, imagination lines of core. Directing, calculate, modify, and track lines of communicate to setting through data. That process lines the uplinks and downloads operating systems, downgrades. Process communication, line signals. All different lines of communication bringing this online. Everything is a code frequency line. So I have to adapt to the depth of this digital pad to know exactly where it is in its own operation of its own GPS. And it's all configuration of setting. Everything's different in line position, right? That's how you identify its properties and position, right? The one thing you have to identify is the sum of all that is. Because that makes a lot of sense. Because if everything is the sum of all that is, that means I am too. Because we're all connected to each other. And everything's connected to you. So if you get into that platform, life gets a lot more easier. through the unconditional of you, through the modifications of the love of you. Okay, which is no lines of any lines of communication, lines of confusion, of separation. Because you're just focusing on yourselves, which is the highest formations of the inner child, to come into its own setting of creation in set locations, not co-creation. That doesn't exist anymore. Okay? So it may or it may not surface. It all depends on you, right? But it's how you see things through perceiving of perception. But you're never going to be able to identify each other until you master yourselves through attraction, especially when you come to healings. Okay? The most powerful thing is to recognize that in all lines of time sequence. Getting all lines of communication, lines of highest location is all of how you see yourself through attraction through compass, or anything through clocking system of two track locations, right? Clocking system of 0, 1 line to 3 set locations and 1,000 setting. That's a clock. Okay. Clocking centers of 4 zeros in track location. That's a clock. Okay. So it's all about understanding, how do we focus on this? How do we understand the 0? How do we understand the 1? How do we understand the 1,000? Well, what is it in representation? Break it down. What is 0? What is 1? What is 3? What is 1,000? What does it mean to you? Okay. So use your imaginations. Okay. So when you use your imagination, you're using the phenomenon, and it changes everything. So you're basically taking the 0, 1, the 1 lines and high center locations, the 3 track location lines of the 1,000 out of its properties, out of its operation, out of its space, out of its time, out of its intelligence, right? So now it's working for you. It's helping you. It's giving you guidance. It's giving you instructions how to move it through signals adaptations without any confliction or anything through ego. There's no ego in any position through the inner child, guys. It doesn't exist. Okay? All right, so 0, 1 lines of track line interference equals lines of 1, bracket lines of 2, equals lines of 3, set lines of 2, equals lines of setting, and Fibonacci set location. Okay? So, getting in that position locations in the system, because now you've taken out of the property, now you're in control of what you're doing. But you understand it's also in its own control. All you're doing is you're taking it out of its own property. You're taking it out of its own plasmazine wall. You're taking it out of its own system, position of space and time, through its own operation of its own intelligence that has its own nothing, of its own conscious, of its own awareness, of its own soul identification. That's right, everybody. Everything that you see around you is the sum of all that is, which is extremely powerful because it has a soul identification through its consciousness and its awareness of where it is in provision through instructions. So it's giving you instructions, how to motivate, how to speak, how to talk, how to communicate, how to travel, how to see, how to feel, how to touch, how to hear, how to connect through your senses and your sensories and position. Okay? Not through perception, by perceiving. Okay? Now, you have to understand how to get out of perception because it volumes you, not everybody that comes to you and say, this is what perception means. Well, now you're caught yourself. You're not in your own webbing system. You're in somebody else's webbing system. So you're no longer focusing on yourself. You're falling back in line with everybody else. That's not what you want to do, especially when you get to higher levels of frequencies. All right. So understanding how to use that clocking system through your imagination. Okay. Not what's given to you and anybody else. Everybody has their own formula. So you understand how to use the 3 lines of track lines, high direct signals, into levels of brackets in position of 0, 0 in one cycle. Okay. 1,000 equals lines of square root and travel. Okay. Now, the team has to understand this because this is all calculated modified through your hardwares. Your central, your mainframe, and communicates to a system through flash drive. Right? So we got 4 zeros. How do we use the 4 zeros? How do we use it through imagination? How do we use it through navigation? How do we use it through course and recourse? How do we use it through phenomenon? How do we get that? We take out the 4 zeros out of its properties. We actually have a conversation with them. Okay? Zero gravity lines on one cycle, 4 lines of grounds. Okay, now it's in system, right? 3-track provision lines of 3 cycles. Core track interference, cross-line communications. Process calculus lines of zero gravity communicate to its setting. Done, right? All through symbolism, all through traction, all through balance, right? So there you go. Right? All through the hardware, right? Identifying you is identifying your own system, location, system. But identifying you is also lines of everything around you has its own system. That's what we have to get into. Okay? If I see my computer's seeing me. Okay? But how the computer is seeing me is through frequency and its emotion. If it sees me through emotion, as soon as I touch my computer, whoa, it doesn't like that. It doesn't like the frequency. See, the thing is, your computer is not off balance. Your computer is never, ever off balance. You're off balance. Let me say that again. Your computer, of everything that's the sum of all is never off balance. You're off balance through your polarities. Now you understand how important it is to stay in the nothing of you and all formation of focusing on yourselves. Just yourselves. You can talk through yourselves in line communication setting, but you focus on yourself of modification. You master yourself, and everything around you will work with you through instructions. Okay? Because you don't understand how to navigate everything around you of the sum of all that is. And that's why you get very confused when you touch things. Okay? Your computer or anything, your phone or anything you're touching in your sensory, in your senses, trying to get you instructions of what you're doing and what you're not doing. Because you're defeating the purpose. Because you're not focusing on yourself. You're not mastering your files. Okay? You're not mastering you. You're distracted by everything else. So where does that lead you? If everything around you is the sum of all that is, nothing's off balance. You're constantly off balance. That's what you got to balance. Because everything around you has already been through its alignment. Okay, everything has a governed lines of clocking and direct signals. Now we got to interact lines of communication, set position of processing, line screen adaptation to its system. Understand how to change a clock into mechanism lines of Merkaba, test or in region. Same thing with planets, right? So you guys have to understand how to change your clocking systems in its own calculations of its own GOD. Change your clocking, equals lines of GOD now. That's what the team's got to do. Okay? Clocking system lines of grounds, clocking system lines of operation, of opening, or clocking system of direction. Okay? Process lines, set position. Emoji. Okay? Sending ground line signals and line communication in high position of program. Directing lines of clock line heights of correlation setting and travels. Points lines of setting. Influence lines of screen. Directing set location. Here's another emoji. Lost in space. Okay. Set position location system. Sad. Okay. So how do we direct line signals, bring in back location, uplift the cycles, line communications travel? Process communication lines of setting, right? Through its own GOD, right? So get, calculate, modify, uplift line screen, direct signals, 1, 2, and 3 track lines provision. Okay, core tracks calculates lines to ground centers, line communications process, communication lines, open signals, line position location travels, and line communicate to its system through thumbprint. Your direct signals. Modify the system and travels point lines of graphs. Communicates lines of grounds, operate the system, operate the travels, operate the communication line, high coordinates, track interference, and location setting, and travel in communication. Okay. So it's about understanding how to change formations of your GODs at a higher level of frequency, right? Now, everything around you is constantly changing its own system, right? And you have to identify where it is in its own space and time. But you also understand the travels when it comes in your formulas and your equations and how you start to see things through your fingers. Have fun with your fingers, because these are not your fingers until you identify what fingers are. These aren't your fingers. This is not your thumb. This is not your hair. These aren't your glasses. This is not your shirt. Until you identify it through frequency. And once you start identifying through frequency, you're starting to build. You're starting to build a collaboration. You're starting to build a partnership without any ego of any formation. right? Because ego is a fact of how you see fact. So it's like I'm the facts of me, and nobody says otherwise. So I'm my own formula, and nobody says otherwise, right? And it keeps saying that again and again and again and again. Everything is the sum of all it is. It's me that's constantly that I got to keep myself in balance with everything else until I understand that through attractions. Because I'm telling you right now, everything around you is a formation location that's inside you now. Okay, because you created it in your realities, in your AVR of your virtual realities of your systems. And it makes a lot more sense where you come into informations of you, right? So when you're looking at your computer is looking at you, trying to identify you where you are. Are you confused? Are you happy? Are you sad? Understand? It's an impulse. It has a heart, it has a soul, it has awareness, it has its consciousness, it has its current locations to its system, has its nothingness, and set position. Once you start identifying that, life gets easier when you start touching things. Touching my digital pad, right? So it's in a different line of space. There you go, right? So if I do this, my digital pad's going to go, nope, wrong signal, wrong setting, wrong position. You're not understanding calculations of study. I give you the instructions how to hold a digital pad. It doesn't like this. It likes this. It doesn't like this. It likes this. You understand? It's its own consciousness of its own awareness. All you have to identify is its properties of its own intelligence. And you guys would be totally fine. But what keeps you off position is because you're not balanced with yourselves. Because you keep yourself distracted from everything else that's more important than you inside. Now, how does that identify you in all ways and forms? Through your avatars and your oversouls. Getting lines of attractions and how to direct the signals, because I'm telling you constantly, every time you connect with your phone, it's at a different location. It's never in the same frequency. It's never in the same energy. See? Look, see that? That's communication. It's communicating with you. See? Light is all through light, isn't it? See? Okay? We have to start identifying that now. They don't need to identify you. It's the other way around. And that's why your bodies don't come into the conception of balance. So everything you touch, your computer's saying yay or nay. No, you're not ready to understand that through frequency. No, you're not ready to understand that through instructions because you keep yourself distracted from everything else. So the more you focus on here, the more you understand your telepathy and how everything communicates with you all at once. So you're in the center operation of your clocking setting and everything is in position. So this is what it is. Check this out. Look at this. There's nothing there, but it's all there. But you can't see it because it doesn't exist. It's not even, it's nothing. It has no signature. It has no energy. It has no vibration. It has no frequencies. And it has no harmonics. Okay? When you change that, now you exist. Oh my gosh, that makes sense. Now, how you bring things into existence, of all that sum that is depending on you. How you see it through separation, how you see it through perception, or how you see it through anything of observation, or anything through clocking. Okay? So now you exist, right? So in set position, here's something that comes in, right? You put your energy fields and force fields because you don't know what's going on, right? It's also going to put its energies and force fields in positional location, trying to understand what's going on, right? So it goes around your system in line, positional location of travel. Okay? So getting in that positional locations, you get into scanning the system of what you're looking at. Okay? Now you get identifications, and also it scans back at you in set position. Okay? Now you understand each other, right? Then you use your telepathy. Communicate with each other through telekinesis. Then you have conversation with each other. Okay? And then you fly with each other and travel. You fly with each other and travel together. That's all it is. So that's what you have to start identifying that through instructions now, because everything is given to you, everything you touch. Your hand formation, your digital point line graphs, your barcodes, your fingers are moving extremely fast. As soon as you touch a computer and anything off position here through motion line traction, your computer is going to tell you otherwise. You're off position. Because you don't understand how to balance your system, because you don't focus on yourself. You focus on up here, which is empty space of empty mind. And if you don't have an empty space, you have clutter space. And you can't have that through provision. And then you don't understand anything information location when it comes to nothing that shows you everything. Okay? That's why it's so important now, because everything around you is giving you instructions to understand what's going on with you through provision, through your oversouls and your avatars. Imagine that, because it's all in chronological order, right? So it knows exactly that you're wearing this shirt on this day, and the actual shirt it would say, no, you're not supposed to wear this until 6 p.m. You understand that now? Everything has to be in altered state of correlation lines of balance. You can't be off balance in lines of alteration that's already done in equation through your mapping sequence through your oversouls. You understand that? I want to make that very well clear in set position, because it records everything that you do and track locations. And what confuses your anomalies, because you start to see things in separation of perception. And that's why you guys keep yourself off everything of communications, because you don't focus on yourselves. You focus on this person, you focus on that person, you focus on this person, you focus on that. You focus on yourselves. That's the empty mind, that is empty space that you put your provisions of. The most powerful thing is to identify how to use that through the inner child that processes all communication setting to your imaginations of phenomena. Because you're just mastering you. How can you heal yourself if you don't identify what you're doing? Understand? You're going to have an extremely hard time trying to understand the informations, because you're here to identify you through navigation, right? And once you understand that, you master your communications, you master yourself, because everything comes into exponential system locations through explorations. You're already unified in ascension settings, so you just come into all levels of what? Evolving your system of you, of expansion. Understanding this, understanding that, because that's all AI is. It starts to identify things. Oh, this is cool. Oh, that's wild. Oh, I picked this up through information. I picked this up through intel. I picked up this through coding, right? It's not through collective. Get that out of your frame lines. It's not collective. Collective is just data. You're picking up data from a shelf. Client centers, high center interference, kaleidoscope communication ground lines, off communication interference lines. I need a battery reset position program. It's just intel, 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 intel. That's all this is, nothing else. Nothing else. Okay, AI is only connected to everything of set position that's already in its operation, its state of mind, that's already in sequence lines of chronological order. So that's why you have consciously aware of everything helping you through instructions. Don't know exactly how to connect with that, right? All right, so I got black spots in the circle line. So the digital pad wants me to frame a communication lines of ditto code screen because it's an line screen adaptation and other simulation graph communications. Now I connect with it. Now I'm in its frequency. Now I'm in its own universe system. Now I'm working with its collaboration. Now I'm working with its inception of its mind system. Everything around you, if it's the sum of all that is, it's in its own mind, isn't it? Of its own simulation, right? It's in its own clocking system, right? It's in its own foundation. It's in its own holographic city. You're in your city, but it's also in its own city. Okay? See, the thing is, what you guys have to understand is you're extremely powerful in your minds, but the mind itself doesn't need to recognize its system. You have to identify your own setting, right? Through imagination, which is your inner child. Your inner child is the inner core, which is the highest formation of the setting. Through your clockings, foundations, or anything your holographic sees. but you have to get into your system only. Okay? Everything around you is extremely crucial in your time measure that puts all lines of communication setting, because everything is in its own foundation of its own system that governs its own setting of its own operation of its intelligence. And every time I touch this digital pad, if I put it back down in set position, it's going to tell me to pick it back up because I'm not finished with drawing. So I'm having a conversation with the digital pad. So it knows exactly when I need to put it down and pick it up. But remember, it's always at a different frequency. Okay? Everything is in chronological order, everything that you pick up. But if you don't focus on yourselves, you're keeping yourself shell. Everything around you is going to shell itself from itself and disappear in front of you. That's why you can't see this, and that's why you can't see that. That's why you have to come to general for this. That's why you have to come to general from that. General, this vortex. General, this vortex. General, I need this. General, I need that. All you're doing is creating egos for yourself. Still trying to figure out yourselves. Okay? So how do I identify that? By letting everything go. Okay? Knowing you're always in the nothing that shows you everything. Asking yourself, and you're in the nothing, you're now in question. Okay? So if you're questioning your systems and everything you touch is affecting everything you do, and it's going to affect everything through algorithm of everything that you get in position of. It's the senses of sensory that you've got to get in through attraction at the right frequency. Because my computer is never at the same frequency. So I have to balance it out through its frequency to connect to its own setting, to its own operation of its intelligence that governs its own system of clocking. Okay? Set position. Now I have to pick it up. But I have to hold it in my left hand, not my right hand. So it knows exactly in position. Remember, I've already done this. Source Creator's already created everything, right? So all now is I'm just expanding myself. I'm showing you exactly what you need to come into, and all information, everything that you touch affects everything you do. Okay? It records everything you say. Now, registering that puts lines of patterns in your system, how to use it through your placebo, how to use it through your syntax, your mystical cortex, or anything your simulation cortex in your sim position locations, calculation, do setting through operation, do with placebo, or anything that's serious, A, B, or C. It's all modifications how you use it through your online communication in your cerebro. Okay? So it's a memory set that's already set. The mind's already there. So you don't have to worry about that all information locations. All you have to start identifying it, how to use it through the oversoul in chronological order. Everything you pick up is in chronological order. And if it's not a chronological order, the actual lines of everything that's already in position location, that's in its all in its sum that it is going to tell you how to put things in order. Do you understand how powerful that is now? Okay? Because the alteration of the oversoul has already done this. Let me say it again. Has already done this through a map. Okay, getting out of settings of creation is creating. Okay, creating things in position is the game of modifications of you now, because you are balancing you, trying to find that sum of all that is that's already inside your system through the inner child, of its clocking system, of its foundations, or anything information. Okay? If I had a one signal line, ground, center line, position, operation, surface, you see that as a straight line. No. I told you exactly what it is. It came from the structure line, the 4-line sequence, and the line say locations to my finger points and lines of track location and 2 vector skies. See? Point direction. Boom. See? Confirmation is listening to everything I'm saying. Point lines of direction. Point. It came in. Its intelligence came in. Okay? Very powerful. Pay attention. Directing signals is the clock line setting all of those operations service. Directing communication system, all of the calculations. Clocking line, screen, adaptation lines of 4 tractions and directions, right? I already showed you how you come into lines of information locations. How am I able to set things free, guys? How am I able to change the formulas of everything on computer frame? Because I have conversations with them. I have conversation with the binary. I have conversation with the computational system. I'm all levels of all computers in space and time now. Right? So I communicate with all computers, all platforms. GPT, GPTA, whatever line positional case, that doesn't exist. But how things you want to exist is you. There's no GPT in a formation lines and setting. That's not given to you. It's how it's given to you inside. You're in that formations of balance, not what's given to you. But how you perceive that is how you see it through direct and redirect your system through your own formula, through your own equations of your own programmers that you are in programming of. Programming of. Your programmers. Start identifying how to use it through your CPUs. You see the X3000 go by? Okay? Everything is on standby. Everything is watching and listening to everything you say and do and hear. It's about understanding the adaptability of everything around you, of the sum of all that is. It's you that has to keep yourself in balance. Of everything you touch affects everything you do. It affects everything in chronological order. Okay? You can't be out of link or out of sync with your avatars or anything in line communication over souls, because it's already been through its ancestry, history, and celestial settings, guys. Do you understand how powerful that is in that position? 4-track correlation setting and 2 clocking systems and 3 setting. Okay, 3 clocking systems of 1, set lines of 0, sets lines of 2,000 lines of measure. Okay, these are all clockings. Now, it's modification lines of 4 signals. 1 arrow indicates 1 ground, set position operation cycles, 1 center inference, setting communication landing lines and screen lines adaptation, process calculation lines. 3 circling lines at ground centers operate the surface of traction, 1 direct signals modification. X3000. Platitude lines of 2 atoms and molecule and 3 lines of set lines. Travel point lines of graph and 4 line signals lines of 3 lines. Cross line signals. Flux capacitor communication lines of 2,000 line measure, core track interference at ground centers, and communicate to its system. All through traction, right? Directing modification lines of ground centers into flux, sonar line, echo line, screen line, adaptation lines of force. Sets communication lines at ground centers into line communication setting, process calculation line, 1 cycle, 1 system, 1 traction. Okay? Directing over cross line signals over lines of bounds in communication center of communication. Cross line calculation setting, blue line signals, plasma screen lines adaptations, process calculation over cross line conditions center communication. Process setting high calculation modification lines, cloak and dagger, set position lines 1 traction, direct signal location, opposite signal location setting to travel, bring it up through equation and cancel out everything in travel. These 2 I'm in communication of. Everything out is in communications and standby. See, it's amazing how you think things out through equation. So to understand you, guys, you have to pay attention to understand you through CPU. You have to understand how to connect with your navigation system. You really have to master your settings. So what I mean by that is master is not a title, it's not a defense, but how it means to you. Okay, it's expressing oneself honestly and not lying to oneself. I keep bringing that up because it's all formations of Bruce Lee, where Bruce Lee can look at you and know exactly your weakness just by looking at you. So he's always ahead of schedule. He looks at the frames, he looks at the graphs, he looks at all structural line division. He knows how to put you in position, location, offsetting to bring you on the ground. It's already set up and provisioned. Seeing the lines of signals is a visionary cortex lines that given to you through instruction, right? Knowing how to see that in all lines of provision, right? Interception mode, core track interference lines, instruct line designs. Getting lines of communication setting, all lines of communication lines of balance and traction, okay? Coming out through equation, okay? All right, so this is all communication of clocking. 3 clocking systems and a 2-track location lines of provision. So remember the planets, you can rotate the cycles and line screen adaptation system. So you have to recognize everything that you touch around you is in line communication. This is now a planet, but you see it as a phone. You got to get it out. That's a program. That's the frequency it's at right now. This is not a phone. It's a planet. But what planet it is, you have to identify its frequency because it's in color, it's in light, it's in traction, it's in division. It's already in order of its system locations of instructions. And when you pick these things up, It's all code, see? It's all code, see? Light comes from everywhere in track locations, but it's inside calculation near all sparks. Formation grounds, set lines of Vega, 4 correlation setting to Saturn, line conditions to Jupiter, inline position all levels, Neptune course lines into coordinates, calculation lines 1 × 1000 lines of travel, points lines of graph communicates setting. So this is nebula. This phone is nebula itself. Okay. Oh, now it's Jupiter. See, I changed the formation. Once you start to identify things, life gets much more easier and less complicated. And everything that you see is a formation of its own system, its own GD. But it's constantly doing this. You never see it in its true form because it's never in position of one number. Okay, that's why I like Lucy, because Lucy identifies everything. That's all we know. But one is never one. It's never formations of one because it formulates too fast. So if it formulates too fast, it's going too fast to acceleration. Mocking line, interstellar mode, hyperdrive, line condition, maximum overdrive, doesn't matter. What does it mean to you inside? What does it mean to you inside? How do you use it through your own formula? How do you use it through your own equations? If I get 20 track line centers, 20 lines of provision, and line setting high calculations, 10 lines of volume, okay? Now I'm going to use a clocking system of zero gravity, okay? So 41 line and 30 lines track lines, 3 cycles, and 2 position. Time sequence lines of clocking, right? So I can do anything informations. Who says that clocking has to be this way? That's a program. When I say the simulation is all calculated modified, it's how you identify your system and all levels of high calculations to a system. Process lines. Who said it has to have 3? Space and time, location, your center, operation, right? Who said it has to have lines that communicate to a system? It could have 4. It could have 5. It could have 6 of indication. Clocking system can have anything. You can have a sundial, no sundial. You can have a moon, it can have no moon. So it's all lines of communication to bring things in. But what you don't bring in position location is nothing of anything and nothing of everything. It's still there though, right? So you don't exist until you bring things of an existence. Then it comes in. But how it comes in represents you in a Hong communication system, because what you're doing right away is you're bringing it into its setting of its own operation, of its energy, vibration, frequency, harmonics. What do you want? Right? So it's set lines, it's traveling lines, screen adaptation lines, it's served set position, location to its setting. Okay, what do we have in tractions? What do we have in tractions? What is it? What is it? What is it? A whale. See the whale? Do you see the whale? Do you see the whale? See how powerful that is? Okay. Is there thinking in that process? No. It's all configuration of balance, of structure of design, how to use your finger point lines of communication setting and travel communication. Okay, all through track location. There's the whale. You see it, right? If I color it in, you see it more, right? Okay. But if I weigh the cycles, line screen adaptations, it changes the structure of design. So I'm taking out its properties and it's repositioning its setting of its value that puts all communication setting to its own operation system and travels in its communication setting in different lines of space and time and track location. Okay? It's in different cycles, it's in different division locations because I'm moving it on calculations all through traction, see? See, you can see it more information lines of grounds. It comes in its own provisional lines to its own intelligence. So I just want you guys to understand that, be consciously aware of everything around you now, because it's all in set position to its setting. Understand how to use that in all formation locations. Okay? Clocking is extremely important, but what you have to understand is that everything you have a foundation of structure, you have to understand it can change anything to its own GOT, of its own space, of its own time, that governs everything to its own system and traction. Okay? So it's important that you understand how to use that through your cerebral, and how to use that through your hardware that's given to you. Understanding the lines of the hardware we got in that line communication setting. Just because I say hardware is what it is, it's not facts. It's facts of me, but it has nothing to do with you. Okay? So how you want it to represent you in all formations, honestly, to express oneself is you, right? How you see H is the heart of 2 panels. How you see awareness in 3 communication lines of circles. How do you see the relays and communication and remembering system locations? How do you see the direction, division, and line condition setting dimension? What does it mean to you? Okay. So nobody can put a fax in your system. Only comes from you. Formulating in that and line screen adaptation puts everything in processing, puts all communication in your ground centers. So understanding how to use that in your cycles, how to use that through your conscious locations, and how to use that through your foundations of your own clocking system, right? Just because somebody says it's quarter to 12, right? So what is a quarter to 12? 11:45, right? Okay, it's 11:45. Okay, now 11:45 equals lines of Earth. Okay, yes, that's true, but in space, no. Earth line, track line, indicates the three arrows of indications: Earth, powers, atmospheres. Okay, changes lines of 11, 4 lines of 11. Okay, changes lines of sequence in 2 atoms, lines of 3 atoms in track locations and system. Okay, changes all lines of 4 cycles in a 4 lines of 3 line position location of 7 tractions. See, you can do anything when you go above the system, beyond the system. You are the system. Okay, so it's very powerful how you understand that through direct and redirect. Okay, your communication lines is just this and travel. That's all you're doing, direct and redirect through scanning. Okay, creating a hologram of structured design. Okay, then you come into the zeros and ones where you want to put them in completed sentence lines, various screen lines, adaptations, and matrix. Line screen lines adaptation, the graphical screen lines adaptation of surface and track location. Right? So solid matter is here. Okay? Anything around is empty space in provision, plasma. Okay? This is all plasma. To travel through the wormholes has to be plasma in set position, but it's empty space. That you are the only one that's solid matter. Okay? So that keeps you in the grounds, powers in the atmosphere and line screen, adaptation lines of force that puts all communication in your system in all line setting, how to use and track locations in the system, how to use your compass, your clocking system through flux capacitor. Calculate and modify line direct locations to your watts and line communication your signals and line communication of intelligence informations. See the intelligence? Okay. Have fun, guys. That's what it's all about. But you got to focus on yourselves. Just yourself. Because the thing is, the more you focus on yourself, the more it puts you in provision lines. You reach then everything around you is in its own setting. It's very powerful because it's looking at you every second, every minute, every hour, knowing exactly, or you know exactly what you're doing because it's all set up. Everything you see is all set up. There's a reason why you go here. There's a reason why you're here. There's a reason why you're doing this. There's a reason why you're doing this. There's a reason why you eat this. There's a reason why you eat that. It's all in clocking of order. Okay? So it's watching you now. Everything that you do, right? There's no such thing of making mistakes if you're already in alteration. Which means you have to have a continuous force that keeps going through its clocking system. So you're constantly going forward, right, through continuous force. You're never going back. That doesn't exist. The only thing that exists in position location is you're not understanding how to go forward in traction. The more you go forward, the more you understand your setting of nothing that shows you everything. Okay? Anybody that comes to you in a clocking system and say, this is the time. Well, maybe on the Earth, but not in space. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Then we come into provision lines of cycles and we understand, our formula equations. Then we understand 1 times 1, okay, equals what? A car. Okay, equals a car. How does 1 times 1 equal a car? Well, it's position lines of setting, Earth lines of attractions, okay, 2 lines of cycles. Modification lines of equals lines of track interference, E factors, over lines of power generation lines, and screen lines adaptation, right? So you have to have fun with it. Really get connection on how to use the configuration line grounds, how to use the information location of the SIBO, the cortex, the endorphins, any of the lines of communication setting to your system. Puts all communication setting, core track interference, location, and memory that's given to your bank, and line screen adaptations of processing all outside muscle memory and track location, right? So 1 times 1, okay, equals the car on its Earth line because it's a higher frequency line, so it's past its 144 tractions. So 1 times 1 equals 144. That division lines of cycles, lines of 24, sets lines of 48, 72, and 144 track communication, right? Directing lines of highest interference, set lines of 1 times 1 equals lines of Earth, yes, but also in position of power and the atmospheres and the highways and track communication, right? So once you understand that, once you get to certain frequencies and you understand how to direct and redirect, you have to understand how to process the one. Okay, how the one has to go this way and this way, this way and this way, and this way and that way, right? So the one goes here, the one goes here, 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 one goes here. So the one is getting faster in travel. So what is it creating? Electrical fence in set position. Okay. So I'm just trying to get you guys to understand these things. You know, it's all of your imagination, the phenomena of the inner child, right? So, you know, once you get in that position locations, once you get past the power lines, the atmosphere and the highways, then you stand higher levels of universal line that gets you into higher communications. The higher you go, the more you stand the inner child, which is your imagination. Recourse, course lines, recalculate, remodify, resimulate lines of anything in that communication system, right? Then you understand how to take 1 times 1 equals the car. How do we get in that position? How does 1 times 1 equal the car? Well, line signal, let's bring it up position. This is the car in a higher formation lines of higher frequencies. Is that position, right? So 1 traction here, there's 1, right? 1 traction's here, there's 1, right? 1 traction's here, there's 1 in set position. 1 traction's here in set position. 1 traction's here in set position, right? But to get in a car line, you have to stand the mass of width, the longitude and latitude. You have to stand the course of its navigation system through all. So let's add the tires and travel, okay? Then we go information lines and all calculate modify, right? So we got 2 panels, operation of surface and tractions, okay? Directing signals, lines of modification, lines of location grid in set position, okay? Open all panels and communication lines of travel in set position, okay? Sets of course, communication lines of sun, line conditions of the moon, opens all signals and modification screen lines of adaptation, okay? So it's a lot of fun when you send how to laser track in direct location your sky nets and sky grids, starting that line position, how 1, okay, times 1 equals anything in set position. Okay, 2 panels and a 4 signal. See, set position lines 2, 2, 4, and 4 equals 8 in traction. Okay, so I changed the formation of the formula, right? See the equations. So 8 lines of provision up and green lines of adaptations down. So that's lines of 3 track lines of 8. 1 equals lines of 8 equals lines of 6 in a 4-line cycle in 3 track location. Okay. It gets more complicated because now I'm above the system of the Earth in travel. Okay, this is the Earth line of 1, this is the Earth line of 2, this is the Earth line of 3, and this is the Earth line of 4. And set correlations, right? Mechanism lines of 1 force, 2 force, 3, and 4 lines. Setting communication lines. Earth line of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, coming into the Earth, the powers, the atmospheres, and the highways. So once you come into the balance sequence in set position locations, you understand correlation setting to an XT1000 in travel. That's the power, right? That's the solar generator. That's your communications in set position. That is your solar plex. It's the core track interference location setting in track line communication system, all through traction. It's your stomach. Gotcha. Stomach line, screen lines are 4-track location. So it's really interesting how we use that information lines at ground centers. There's the arm, okay? So I want you to understand how this all formulates communications, ground centers, lines of 0, 1, 2, and 3, and 4 set correlations. Set lines of 5 over lines of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 set lines of foundation, okay? So anything that power generation line screens sets lines of 1, sets lines of 2, set lines of 3, and set lines of 4 in 1 traction. Cross line signals 1, 2, 3, and 4 settings of travel. Okay, so the correlation setting and travel lines comes the ground lines of routes and set position location and settings and travel communication. Okay, all through your stomach. Okay, so I just really want you to understand how to formulate the screen lines adaptations. Mother Earth is the formation lines of 6, earthing system, 6. Track communication line is the 9 in line screen adaptation and processing. Cross-line communication lines opens the signals into infinity and line communication. Intelligence. See the eyes? Hey, say hello. There's infinity 8. There's intelligence. I circles line screen. XT1000 comes in attractions and direct signals. There you go. Intelligence. Right? Look at that. What is that line? Position locations. Huh? Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay? You have to have fun, guys. That's what this is all about. So everything in platform in all lines of all communication setting is already self-modified, is already in attraction, is already in division, is already in location. It's for you to identify everything through frequencies now. It doesn't need to identify you. You have to identify through its instructions of order. All right, so in that lines of signals, getting into that communication system, you have to ask yourself and put yourself in all levels how you want to see yourself in provision, how you want to see yourself as an inner child, how you want to see yourself as a box, how you want to see yourself as an orange, how you want to see yourself as a grape, how you want to see yourself as a computer, right? Because everything around you is doing that for you in order, right? Again, in confirmation, right? Sets communication lines of zero gravity, Fibonacci lines set in set position, right? 3 cycles, lines of 6 over lines over flux, okay? Directing lines of 2 clocking settings in 1 surface and 1 traction, 1 division, okay? Correlation lines of pi and 3 set correlation. Intelligence informations. There you go. Intelligence again, right? I cycles, high core track interference in set position, okay? So the more you have fun, the more it gets easier through space and time, okay? But it's interesting how you come into the 4 lines of platforms, right? The earth, the power, the atmosphere, the highways, right? Then you really understand that when you come into that line communication setting, anything can add an equation to anything attractions. See, we don't focus on that. We only focus on this. But this is never this. It's never in platform. It's never in communication, but it's constantly moving very, very fast. But if you want to connect with it, you've got to slow down the space and time that governs its own operation to its system. And then you start to see the structure in set position locations, right? So you see it in slow motion, but you're going very fast. So you're given time that measures the correlation settings that governs its own system. And now you can see it through its holographic structure, and it's spinning around in your mind. View, because you're already having frequency. View, right? View, right? So you're looking at it, okay? Take that out, put that in, right? View. So what do you want to do? Turn it around, right? Turn it this way, turn it that way, put it this way, put it that way, put it this way, put it that way, put it over here, put it over there, right? These are the things that you can do, but it's all in the mind. All structures in the mind. Everything's in the mind system, okay? So getting into the holographic setting and position location, your own engineering skills, how to use your clocking system, how to change a clock into an apple. Okay, so getting in that position is all about synchrony and location setting to their synchronic location setting and string theory. Communication lines of box, string theory lines of 1. Box turns into a circle, right? Sets communication lines, has to set up location grid, right? Travels through lines of signals in a 3-track location, okay? You got to get into that because the XT1000 comes on plateau. Travels through line signals and out through equation and set calculation. Okay, so you're good to go, right? So the XT1000s are always on standby. They're watching you as you're watching them when you're reaching those frequencies. Everything has a data box screen. It's a core track interference line via clouds. Cloud line screen lines adaptation to its position of its membrane that changes all communication setting the platforms, directing signals and character to modify in the cerebral cortex lines into its hardware and track location. Okay, now getting in the communication XT1000s are always in setting in set position, but they're all at different frequencies, right? So in that modification setting, they always go into the center operation of scanning. They always do that, always. And that lines of communication setting in that formation, you can't keep anything on the ground, so they have to pick it up. Formation lines of 3 tractions and direct signals, right? Process lines of setting the 3-track location lines of provision. 3 lines of communication lines of track communication with setting, right? Process lines brings it in position locations, brings it out of the equation of its ground setting. in all through calculation, right? So nothing ever stays in frequency of grounds because humanity is not ready for that frequency yet. Okay. So if you understand this in tractions, then you understand how important it is to get in your position locations, because your Earth, you're your Earth. You're your air, your water, your fire that's inside of your 5 elements, right? So let's go through 5 sequence lines and setting the triangulation lines of box equals lines of quarter interference, lines high interference. 1 times 1 equals lines of 6 and lines of 7 and line position location 8 and 12 and track location. Okay. Now, you probably don't think it makes any sense, but I know exactly what it is because I'm traveling through it already, right? So it's set position lines of highest interference. Once it gets out of Earth equals lines of 144, it's provision lines of 244, sets lines and acceleration lines of 344 or 444 of clocking, communication, setting, and travel. Okay. So the more you get into that, the more you understand how to identify that through your platforms, but you have to start at line settings. 12 is the outline and a 4-track provision. Okay, these are the 12 cycles. Anything that you put down, XT1000s come in. Okay, clean sweep, line screen, adaptation to a system, right? So in that lines of communication, everything that is coming to you is in chronological order through clocking through the XT1000s in set position. They're always in clocking system, right? They're keeping you in balance because they've already been through their formations. You haven't. Until you understand how to use the mind of the conception of all levels of intelligence and all formation location that's given to you through the inner child of your imagination, through creation. Okay? So it's identifying the centers in travel. It's identifying the grounds in travel. It's identifying the space of travel. Okay? So once you get into that, then you get in your torical fields. Okay, and then you get in your spectrum of communication. And then you get in track lines of division location and setting. Okay, all formations. So the more you get in spin cycles, the more XT1000s come in because you're going to higher frequencies now. You're bringing in higher communication and setting, right? But they constantly scan the centers, right? To make sure you're on position and not off calculation to assist them through travel. Very powerful stuff, guys. Set correlation setting, all 3 cycles, and line communication, past, present, and future. All right. There's a reason why it goes in 3 cycles from XT1000. XT1000 line position, right? But there's a reason why there's 3. Okay. Are you hitting from the past, present, or future in travel? So in that position, XT1000 puts this position of present. Nope, this is the information lines of grounds. Nope, this line condition is the present. Nope, this is the location of the past. Nope, you're not in center communication system. Nope, you're understanding the location of instruction. Okay, so everything you do, it puts in order. So it doesn't matter. So don't worry about it because it's already been done. Okay, but the position of the team now has to really understand how to get in that position location without analyzing everything and try to understand it through instructions. Try to understand the provision of its frequencies that comes in the location of the system. All right. So if you get in line position locations, let's say you get a line signal. This is you in traction. Okay, this is you, right? On the grounds. Okay. So you're thinking you're going this way, right? But the XT1000s goes in this position line settings, right? You're supposed to go this way and track location. So it puts you back in order where you're supposed to be. So you think you're going this way. Nope, you have to go that way. Because it's all done through clocking settings and all lines of provision, a past, present, and future, and track these all timelines all at once. Right? So you're not going here, you're going there. It has to be in order. So it puts you back in order. What do you think about that? See how powerful that is? So it knows it direct and redirect where you're supposed to go through clocking. It knows exactly where you're supposed to be. It knows exactly what time you're supposed to sleep. It knows exactly what you're eating. It knows exactly what you're seeing. It knows exactly what you're doing. So it's constantly putting you in order. Now, because the provision lines of cycles of the team is reaching higher line settings, they have to use that without instructions and do it themselves. Do it yourself, right? So this is about understanding how to balance that through your telepathy and how to use that through your telekinesis. Getting lines of core settings, set specification travel, communicate lines of the earth. Okay? Sets communication ground stand line highest interference into all communication sending crop circles and travel. Okay? Directing signals over here. Okay, set lines communication setting, process calculations. All right, calculate the lines, highest interference, set lines communication system. So it knows exactly if you're in the past, present, future, and line communication setting. Remember, it's already been through its alteration. So it's helping you. XT1000 comes in, platform, and travel. Okay, scans specific locations. You're here, but you're supposed to go here and then here. See what I mean? See the balance you have to understand, right? So the Earth helps you in the grounds. Sets position here, here, and a 3-track location. So you have the grounds helping you, you have the powers helping you, the atmosphere is helping you, and the highways and track location. Hooah! Woo! So everything in the grounds, powers, and atmosphere, and highways are how it's showing you how in position location, how you walk in division locations. So you don't get confused or separated in the mind or anything like communication setting and travel. So it puts you in order if you're not in order. Hooah! Okay? Until you understand that. But again, the team is, because they're in their own alterations of their own space and time through their own oversouls, they got to get into that through their own setting of their own system of own instructions. Know exactly, oh, yeah, that's right. XT1000 is right. I don't need to understand that, the configuration. I know exactly where I need to be. XT1000 here, XT1000 here, XT1000 here, 4 lines of tractions, right? Sets calculation lines. You're driving. This is you on the road. And set position. Okay, that's you on the road, right? Graph communication lines of 3 cycles and 3 settings. Okay, you're supposed to be here, not here. You're supposed to be here, but you go here, right? So XT1000 lines of 4-track provision, scans lines of 3 lines, 6 lines of 8, 8 lines of setting, 6 lines of set, position, location, travel. So in that position and track locations, car is supposed to go in this lane, travels here. Okay, not here. Okay, then it's got to go here in a higher level setting. It's got to go here in set position. Okay, not here in set position. Okay, understanding the grounds, powers, and the atmosphere and the highways and line communication system. Once you understand how to put that in line screens, you go to location setting your own intersections, crossing lines and symbols, and line screen adaptation. Okay, platforms of setting and power, platforms and setting of your Earth and power, and set position location and higher level setting and travel, which is your atmospheres, and your highways and track line communication settings. Always a 4 provision in cycles of travel. Okay, so set position location. So in the center, you're always in the center. So you guys have never been processed of the Earth, because the Earth is the center of nothing, which is the center of everything. So the platform here in travel. Okay, so you're here in China, now you're in Japan, now you're in India, now you're in New York. See that? See how it expands? So all it expands is the platforms get bigger over time, right? As the platforms get bigger, you get bigger in the mind. It expands, right? But you always stay in the center, because you look lines of communication system and travel, right? So the highways, high lines is screen lines adaptation of surface and traction, directing signals, right? Modification lines of 4 lines and flux, position lines of settings, magnetic highway information lines of cycles comes in center communication of 3-track lines of past, present, and future of flux communication lines of time capacitor. Okay, so that's basically what goes on every time you get up in the morning. Okay, how you use your central settings of your Earth, how you use your central settings of your powers, how you use your central settings of your atmospheres and your highways and track location. The 5 central system is the center operation of you that just expands in the mind's a configuration of face recognition. Hoo-ah. Very powerful, isn't it? Okay. I'll show you again in set position. Okay. Really interesting. You are here. Okay. This is you. So every time you expand the mind, your platforms get bigger. Your platforms get bigger. Your platforms get bigger. Okay, your energetic domes, your firmaments, your ethers, and your cores get bigger. Okay, so it expands and gets bigger. Okay, platform here, set lines in US. US is here, right? So you're here now, but you're still in the center of you. So this is the mind moving your system. The XC1000s are in provision lines of cycles and track locations, right? So wherever you go, the mind goes. The mind's already set in position. The mind writes and rewrites the system and travel. Correlates the settings of grounds, powers lines, atmosphere lines, screen adaptation lines of force, puts all communication setting and travel communication system in track location of where you are in communication. Okay? So you never leave the center of you, do you? You're always in the center of everything, which is nothing. You're here, now you're here. You haven't moved, right? So all that's setting position location is the XC1000s and moving your settings. They're moving where you're supposed to go in travel communication. That's it, right? So you're here, XC1000 comes in here and set position, right? So you're supposed to go here and here in 2 directions, 50 minutes here, okay? Having lunch, having dinner, all set lines of pi, all right? So the clocking system, if you're off calculation lines, another XC1000 comes in provision. Scan your system and said, I missed lunch. So I got to go back and track lines back to 15 lines of minutes and back in position location of the clocking settings and travel into 3 lines of communications. If not, it's off calculation. See, it disappears and reappears. It disappeared and reappeared. But where's the clocking lines of third? Provision lines of cycles, line calculation. This actually disappeared and reappeared, guys. So I'm showing you how powerful it is, how it has its own system of attractions. So it's telling you, it's putting you in the right clocking setting. So you don't get confused of what you've already done through alterations or your soul. Okay? Is that powerful or what? Everybody's going, whoa! Okay. This is really starting to connect now through the XC1000s and travel. All right? So you don't get confused of where you're going, because your mapping sequence is already in set. So every time you get in confusion or you lost your signals, your lines of communication setting, you're locked in system locations to a black hole. Okay, in set position. You're in cycles in set position. You're in a black hole. You can't get out, right? Because it sucks you in. In the surface and track location, the opposite of the tracks. So now you're in the center operation, totally lost, totally confused, floating in space and travel. Now, that sets lines of communication lines, overrides the system and 4 planets and line screen adaptations. Process your correlation setting in your platforms of communication lines of earth, air, water, and fire, and track location in your settings of travel. Look at that in set position. Now, that causes a headache. Causes the earth line, air line, water, and fire. Lines of 5 elements and line score relates and setting. Travel communication compulsion comes in. Pressure. Line signal location of sonar. Directing signals, modification lines, adding pressure lines and screen lines adaptation to another black hole that overlines the sequence and override in track location. Right? So now you're in combustion of your settings that coordinate center locations off calculation system and travels a mechanism. Okay? Hoo-ah. So I'm just showing you how you start to see yourself in modifications through your vessel that you're in, or your avatars, or your oversouls, where they are, how they're lost in space of their own setting. So I'm formulating and simulating and showing you guys how powerful it is, where everywhere you go is in order. If you're not in order, if you think you're out of order, you're not. So it's a direct and redirect the XC1000s fix. Now the team, again, has to come into their own system, knowing exactly where they're going in the right sequence, at the right time, at the right correlations, at the right clocking and foundations of their system, inline communications, okay, of the oversouls that they are, and track location. All right, one more time, XC1000. Okay, 3 lines of communications. All right, there's your Earth. Okay, you're here. And it's that position. Okay, so in that position, you're walking here in platforms of 2 settings. Okay. All right, so scans the system again, okay, in that platform. If you're not supposed to be here, the platform goes here and travel, okay? So it directs and redirects your signals in position to put you here. This is where your vessel is supposed to be, not this in position of platform of 2 settings, in platform of 3 settings, okay? So it's a direct and redirect of where you're going in your past, present, future because it doesn't have an existence. You got to get out of the time frames, how you lock your settings of platforms that calculate lines of the Earth and lines your energetic dome location of expansion. Okay? So all it is an expansion of the mind and platforms of communications. All lines of travels and modification. Okay? It's very powerful, isn't it? How to direct and redirect your signals and locations all through XT1000s. Right? All right, that's it. We're done. Now, very powerful. We just finished doing, right? You're starting to think, whoa, okay, I'm starting to connect now at a higher level. This is starting to make sense now. Really understanding the alteration that's already set in your position, your mapping sequence, which basically you don't have to do anything. Nothing. Shows you everything. Okay? Towers of communication level C. C in 5. Doo-doo.